Hey guys, today I sat down with Chris Kwong, a very good friend of mine, a private banker in a top tier private bank here in Singapore. And we talk about his journey of going from being a magician to AML to becoming a private banker. It was a great chat. We unpacked our mutual love for MMA, comedy, and his entire journey. And what's really exciting is he does a magic trick live on the Quinntessential Question Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Cheers. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Very early on a Saturday morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Even better seeing you this morning. And yeah, I've not woke up to do a podcast on a Saturday morning. Can't say that it's a regular thing for me. So I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I'm pumped for today.
Yeah.
So look, for those that may not know you, can you just give a little bit of a quick introduction as to who you are?
All right. So my name is Chris. I used to be a professional mind reader. And more recently, for the past 10 years, I've been in the private bank and a private banker covering the Indonesia market in particular. And that's the long and short of it. Yeah.
Good man. Yeah. Well, we're going to start in a moment with a magic trick.
Yeah.
So I'm ready for this. So we'll dive into the podcast after.
Yeah. I think this is the first time you're having a magic show on your podcast, right?
100%.
Okay. So Paul, and you are
Naysayers.
Naysayers, nice to meet you. First time we've met, right?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, we'll try something. Okay, so I've not done magic in a while, given my current day job, but we'll try something, and I hope it translates over podcast well. Okay, so Paul, we'll start with you.
Okay.
I have 3 books over here: Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, The Shining by Stephen King, and the last one, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Interestingly, these are 3 novels that are all film. And I've heard your previous podcast. You are quite a film buff and someone who's really into the arts, right? So
100%.
Hopefully these books kind of resonate. It's random 3 books off my own shelf.
Yeah.
And what I need you to do is, I want you to pick one of these books. Okay, whichever book we pick is the book that we will use. Okay, so nothing funny. I don't want you to think I put Harry Potter on top because it's the most recent, or Stephen King in the middle because most people go for the middle, or Da Vinci Code at the bottom because, you think, I don't want you to go for that book. Make sure it's a free choice. Change your mind a couple of times and really just reach across and pick up the book that you want. Remember, the book that you want is the book that we will use, okay?
You're messing with me. I know you are. I can feel it. I have to go with Harry Potter.
Harry Potter?
Yes.
Okay, great. Before we begin, Harry Potter, just flip through the book. I want you to read a couple of pages, make sure it is indeed Harry Potter.
You know I'm dyslexic, right? But okay,
that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Harry had entered Mr. Ollivander's brilliantly gilded shop with Hagrid.
Okay, great. Now, Naysha, what I want you to do is to take the book from Paul, and I want you to flip through the book and find piece of dialogue between 2 characters, so the open and close inverted, and then pick a nice long word, make it more than 9 or 10 letters. Okay. Yeah, so find a conversation between 2 characters. Raise the book up so I can't see it. Kind of takes away the challenge if I could see it. So any page you want, pick a page first, and find a piece of dialogue.
She's taking this seriously, mate.
I know, I'm getting a bit worried. So you found a piece of dialogue, and then you pick a word out in that conversation. Nice long word. Don't pick me. Don't pick a name. Don't pick you, and don't make it nice and long. Yeah. Word. Now shut the book up. Okay, Paul, take this book, flip to any page, and I want you to pick a nice long word. Make it a nice 9, 10 letter word. And once you got it, just remember. Okay, done?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just put the side. Before I begin, I think, Naysha, I just want you to hang on to this. I actually forgot to give that to you, but before we start, we'll give that there. So now it's interesting, right? I could have done a card trick, but I thought would be boring. So in essence, what I'm doing is a card trick, but with books. And instead of 52 cards, I'm using thousands and thousands of words here. And both of you guys are thinking of a word. Quite interesting. It's a very, very strange situation that we're in. And the only people in the entire world right now at 9 a.m. in the morning, 2 people in the whole world think of 2 random words in Harry Potter. That's a very, 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 very strange situation.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll start with you, Naisha. I want you to concentrate on this word that you're thinking thinking from the book. Okay. Just imagine writing it out in your head. This is the first time we met, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Are you a Gemini by any chance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just came across. Wow. That's
Wow.
so you're someone quite artistic, interesting here. Okay, it's a bit hard to get, but it's okay, just concentrate on this word. Getting a bit hard to okay, just hold on to that thought. Paul, I want you to think of your word, and with the first letter, I want you to think of an animal and just shout the animal out loud.
Right now?
Yep.
Rats.
Rats. Okay. What is the number 13? Is that something? Why are you thinking of 13?
I'm not, but
No, okay, but it's okay.
it is significant for me.
Significant. I don't know why that just came. And we just met, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and I just concentrate on this word. Who's Hamdev?
Whoa.
What's that?
It's my surname.
Okay, just
Wow.
Put that aside. Okay.
That's scary.
Don't know why I'm not. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna just jump around a bit. Paul, you're just concentrating on that word.
Yeah.
So you thought of rats, right?
Yeah.
Let me see what I can get. I want you to imagine this word right now.
Okay.
And imagine writing it out on a board. Okay.
Okay.
Instead of a whiteboard, I want you to go back to primary school. Imagine you're at that chalkboard.
Okay.
Write the first letter, second letter, third letter, stop. I think I got the word. Handwriting is horrible, but I think I got the word, and the spelling may be horrendous. Okay. For the first time, so you are thinking of a word, could be thousands of words, you picked one word.
Yes.
For the first time, could you name that word out?
Recommendation.
Recommendation.
Oh, that's sick.
So that's kind of like, it looks kind of like mind reading, right? It kind of is, but not really, because there's no such thing as mind reading. But you're thinking of a word, right? It's funny, because you're a Gemini, you're someone who is really honest and kind of come across, you're someone who really follows things. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
just say the word that you're thinking of. Say it out loud.
The word that I read.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
You're holding on to that envelope from before the trick started. I want you to just open up that envelope. Something there, take it out. And I want you to just read
Oh.
everyone.
Wow.
And then
Possible.
Chris, man. Did it again, bro. Did it again. Chris, man. That was amazing.
well, I was pretty nervous. I've not done magic in years now, given my new day job for the last 10 years. But
Well, I hope that we were able to capture it, right?
I really hope so too, because that's one take. There's no more.
Yeah, that was brilliant. So look, let's roll back in time.
Okay.
When we first met.
Okay.
Tell the audience how we first met.
Meeting Paul was, as I said off camera before we began, a very Paul-esque story. So Paul and I actually were living in the same apartment condo complex, and we were in the gym. Didn't know who Paul was, and I was actually on the treadmill and just running. And next to me pulled up this guy who is jacked and just started running on the treadmill, and he was pouring sweat out, obviously, because Paul's like all muscles. And I just looked across, and he was watching MMA, and I think it's not common in Singapore and not where we were living to see someone watching two men in underwear fighting in a cage. And I just walked over to Paul and asked, "Hey, are you an MMA fan?" And I think the rest is history, right?
That was it, man. It was crazy. And what was weird was, so what happened was, you don't know this. We just moved back from the US.
Okay.
And we had rented our house out.
Right.
And we needed to rent an apartment for 20 months.
Yeah.
No less, no longer. And I hadn't even, so that place was called Montima. In Upper Brooks. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
We hadn't even physically seen it.
Yeah.
I had run past it before our runs, and I thought, that was great.
Yeah.
But what's funny is it turns out that I was friends with your dad.
Yeah.
We didn't know that for a couple of years, maybe.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's just, we never talked about work.
We never talked about work. And I think when you put two pieces together, it kind of feels like it's meant to be, Paul. It's meant to be.
It was classic. Now your dad sending me, I remember him sending me stuff from Conor McGregor, when I was going to New York to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. And he always comes like, Paul is crazy. He flew all the way to New York to watch MMA. And my dad, I mean, he's also a crazy MMA guy. Like, and it started when we were kids. So my mom used to work in a Japanese advertising firm.
Okay.
So they went over for dinner, and crazy Japanese boss started watching Pride FC.
Wow.
Yeah, so my dad was like, what the hell? What is going on? Yeah. And then, so he gave us a VHS tape. So he's like, I have to find out. We went to Far East Shopping Center. It felt like it was very gross at that time watching cage fighting. It was illegal, right?
Yes.
And so we went to Far East, had to go and dig out all these random VHS tapes. So I remember watching UFC 1, 2, 3 when there were no rules. There was like the huge sumo guy and all that. So MMA. I mean, now when he looks at it, it's came a long way. Yeah,
and no one would think that of your dad, by the way.
No,
right?
No one would.
Probably no one even knows that unless they're very close to him.
Exactly. Yeah, I think for many years my mom would tell him, please don't tell anyone you're into cage fighting.
Well, actually, so when you and I were WhatsApping to confirm the date, that day that we did it, 5 minutes before or after, your dad had just messaged me.
Yeah.
And then I said, your dad's invited me to a gala dinner. Are you going?
Yeah.
And you said, I have
no idea what this is about. Yeah, but
that happens a lot. I don't know if you've noticed it, but it happens a lot to me when the phone rings and it's someone that you were thinking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
I think we're interconnected. We just don't, you can't see it yet.
Yeah.
You can see it though.
I think, of course, I pretend to be able to read minds, but what I do is a lot on that. It's a bit of intuition, a bit of showmanship, and a lot of fraudulent trickery. Yeah, so that's how I do what I do. Yeah.
So let's unpack your journey, right? So growing up in Singapore, how did magic find you?
So I think a lot of my family will come up in this conversation. So my uncle was a pastor of a mega church and also a magician. So he did his first magic show when I was 13.
That's your dad's brother?
That's my dad's brother. And the show was in the indoor stadium in Singapore. So that's a huge show, 20,000 people. I was like, magic is really cool. Picked it up and never dropped it. I guess it's a bit nerdy and it's a hobby that has always been there for me. It was something that helped me a lot as a teenager and through my life, because it's something that it's a very, as I said just now, fraudulent way of impressing people, right? But over time, I kind of evolved my view towards magic and kind of now try to I'll make the person experience the magic, and it's not so much about me and look at me, I can do this. So that is the magic journey, something that has always been with me as a hobby. And I went to uni, went to the army, and of course, after coming out of the army, I told my parents I want to at least try it for 2 years, whether I make it or not. I'll just do it for 2 years. Did that. I think I had a pretty successful YouTube thing. Did a couple of sold out shows in the Esplanade, and you actually came to one of the shows we did at a club called Canvas back in 2015 or 2016.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, and then 2 years came to an end, and Asian parents, they said, go and find a real job, and I somehow ended up in a bank by way of LinkedIn. I literally...
Oh, is that how it came about?
Yes. So I think for a disclaimer, I think maybe people ask, my dad, as you would know, is someone who is very senior in the private banking world.
Yes.
Yeah, and literally his name is on the textbook that we have to study for the exams, the CACS exams. Yeah. So I fought very hard to not be in banking. So actually, I never wanted to be a banker.
Yeah.
Yep. So in the army, I was in legal services. So I had legal services. I did university. I did psychology and sociology.
Did you go to uni then the army or the other way around?
I did the army and then uni. So I had no skill set for the banking industry.
Well, let's go back. I'm just curious because a lot of people that are watching this, they're either parents trying to guide their children like me, or there are younger people that are thinking, you know, which way should I take my career? So army, when did you realize you wanted to go to Sydney?
I always wanted to experience living overseas. So I always knew I was going to try to, with the blessing of my parents, obviously, pursue my university overseas.
I would have thought, knowing you, that your heart yearned for America.
I know, but I didn't want to do the SATs. I would love to have moved to the US to do my university, but I didn't want to do the SATs, and I think it's a bit closer to home. It was easier.
And then why did you choose that degree?
As you know, I was very into the mind reading, mentalism stuff. So I was like, why don't I try and study a psychology degree to kind of build that whole character, you know, and add some legitimacy. But I didn't know that a psychology degree meant a degree in statistics and nothing to do with psychology or whatever pop psychology that we know of. But yeah, I managed to do that and got out of university, did pretty okay, and then did the magic thing. 2 years came to an end, and there I was staring LinkedIn in the eye on my phone. I was like, what do I do? So I was in legal services in army. I dislocated my shoulder like after my basic.
How'd you do that?
Just from falling and all that. So I had to serve in legal services. So that's all I had, right? All the experience. So I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and this was back in 2015. And that's when anti-money laundering was all the rage because of the whole 1MDB thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I just applied, and they were desperate for people. So they said, oh, you have kind of legal background, you speak well, you write well, just come in as a contractor.
Okay.
So I went in to the bank as a contractor.
Doing AML or compliance?
Doing AML. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in AML. And then remember, at this point, I was fighting hard. I never, ever wanted to be a banker. So then one day, I was covering this case for a banker. You know, we have to pull up and do investigations if things are weird. So working a case with this banker, and then the team leader at that time who covered this banker said, hey, you speak pretty well. You write pretty well. Do you want to try to become a banker? An assistant banker. They call it an ARM basically. So I said, okay, let's just try that. I think it was getting a bit
What
stagnant.
was that person's job?
Which person?
The person that suggested you move across.
The team leader for
the team leader.
Yeah, the team leader for the banker.
I like that. So you have to acknowledge that person.
Yeah. So tried that. So I became an assistant for 5 years for this banker, and then ended up becoming a junior banker, and now they would say a full-fledged banker. And I never ever wanted that. It's funny how life works out that way.
It does.
Yeah, and in hindsight, actually, that journey kind of worked because, I mean, as you know who my dad is, I mean, he's senior in private banking. People will always think it was
by design.
Fast track way, and there really wasn't. I was literally a contract staff that had to get converted. And strangely, I'm 36 years old this year, and I've never resigned in my life.
Yeah.
So
Well, listen, I think that is also something one inherits from their parents. You know, in terms of values, the way that you operate.
Yeah.
We were talking about this in the lead up to this, but I was saying, well, like this weekend, Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank's sons are fighting.
Yeah.
And we talked about LeBron and his son on the same team.
Yeah.
You got the chance to work with your dad. Yeah. Tell us about that, because that was got to be weird.
It was very weird. My dad somehow, after retiring, joined my bank at the time as a vice chairman. You know, one of those more senior roles. So still remember the day I pulled up to work. I was in the toilet that I go to every day to pee, wash my hands. This is 10 years, right? I've been in the same place every year. And then I don't know why my dad's in the office with me. So I looked at him, he looked at me. I said, what are you doing over here? So we just laughed. But I think we were talking about this, but a memory that I have was bringing him to my client meetings, because as a vice chairman for private banks, you bring them, you just want to show that, you know, you have good counsel, a good leadership in the bank, right? So I brought him along to meet some of my clients, something that I never thought I could do, because obviously we can't share our client information, but being the vice chairman, I was using him for exactly what his role was. So seeing him with clients was something that during the client meeting, I kind of stepped back and I was like, wow, this is quite special.
Very special.
Yeah, as a kid, I always hear him, I'm going to work. But I've never seen him in action with clients, and that ability to kind of hold his own in a conversation, because in private banking, you don't deal with high net worth. These are ultra high net worth clients, right? These are people who are bosses and founders and all that.
They're worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Correct. So when I saw him in action, being able to hold his own and knowing all of the people in their circle, I think it really showed me the value of experience in this industry.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I heard this once, and probably you don't have this relationship with your dad. I did with my dad. So, quite often when we're younger, we idolize our dads, and then more often than not, we ended up demonizing them. And then for me, unfortunately, it kind of happened after my dad died. I humanized him. Right. But I think, being a father myself of a son, I realized that's so. It's a passing of the torch moment.
It is, and I mean that all that mystery of him saying I go to work, I finally saw that in action, and something that I think I would take with me forever. Yeah, it was a very short period, and something that I will not forget.
Well, just actually, when I found out who your dad was when we were living at Montimo, it was after that, because I never saw him there ever. And then after that, because I then saw what car he was driving, he would often come back very late at night. Very late, like 10, half 10 quite often. I'd see him coming back from work, and I thought, he's putting a lot, because he's always in work early. And that's the nature of the business, right?
Actually, strangely, right, he doesn't come back late from work. He's a very balanced guy.
Oh, is he?
But he after work, after office hours, he will hang out with my mom, or they'll go out and do they're very active in church.
Okay.
So they'll do that kind of thing. And that's something that my dad has always been very, very strict about. He's very strict about his office hours. He doesn't work overtime.
Oh, really?
But he makes up for it late at night. So after coming back from work, spending time with mom, doing whatever he wants to do, his hobbies and church stuff, he works till like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, just doing emails, because he said that's the only time that no one bothers you. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how you've incorporated magic into your job, because you're using this a little bit now to coach some of the bank, because I'm fascinated about that. You're coaching the bankers, right?
I am starting a communications company with a friend, where basically we just want to teach people how to talk in conversations and also present on stage. I think having come from a showbiz background and looking at it in the corporate world, it's quite interesting that even at the highest levels, they struggle at public speaking. But I mean, I don't blame them, because that's not what they studied for or trained for, right? They are just really good at a job, they become management, and then suddenly they're tossed on stage and they have to present huge conventions and client events. So that's where I started. I mean, that's how I decided to start that with a friend.
What does your friend do?
So he works in a fitness app, and he has to do a lot of selling, right, to all these various gyms in Singapore. So he's someone he's a great surfer, snowboarder. So he has had that, that YOLO lifestyle, right? And that ease of communication is incredible for me. Like, I've seen him, he can talk to anyone, from people who would be like my clients to the man on the street. And I saw that range, right, from him. So
which is unusual.
It is. And that's something that is actually very important for private banking. So I thought that's something we can incorporate. And from my end, having done a lot of stage shows, I mean, you've seen it yourself. Something that I think I can kind of bring to the table.
Well, one of the things I wanted to touch upon, because one of the key reasons why I set up the podcast, there are many, but was I meet so many amazing people through work, but no one knows their backstory. So if someone met you as a private banker and they didn't know your backstory, you'd be missing a massive part of your DNA and who you are. Correct. Right? And look, the reality is banking and finance to a large extent can be quite boring. Right? And what makes people different is their interest in their hobbies. And actually, one of the other reasons, talking about kids, was I wanted my kids to see that anything is possible. When I set this up, I don't really ask people their opinion, because if you ask 10 people, you're going to have 10 different ideas, And half the time people are going to say no. So probably, I'm curious, when you were going into magic, there would have been a lot of naysayers.
Yep, I mean, it's in Singapore, it's a strange thing to get into, right? But I think the magic thing is still with me. It's a great hobby that I have, and it's actually more fun as a hobby than a job because I don't have to sell out, right?
Yeah.
But I've seen it kind of incorporate into my daily life by way of having that confidence to be able to speak to anyone. Because magic was something that kind of showed me that we are all humans.
Breaks barriers, right?
Exactly, breaks barriers, but you realize that no matter how famous or smart a person is, they still can be fooled with a magic trick, right? And that kind of humanized, as you said, people. And I bring that into my private banking career because I'm able to, I don't have a fear speaking to anyone. You could put me in front of a CEO. I know we're just two human beings communicating, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people can't see past that facade.
Yes.
And I think magic has given me the ability to see past it. Obviously, I don't break out a trick anymore, but it was almost like a crutch, which, to learn how to walk, and eventually I can throw away that crutch and now I can run.
But it's in your tool bag, right?
Yeah, it's always in my tool bag. If people want to see something, I actually don't ever do magic when people ask me to do it anymore. I mean, I still once in a while, if I want to do it, I'll pull it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to have that in a toolbox.
So you're saying like it's back then it would have been a nerdy thing, but what I've noticed is if this is a good point for most people to realize, if you do something for a long time and you outlast everyone, it goes from you go from being a nerd to a hunk.
Yes.
If you look at David Blaine, right, he was definitely nerdy. I think you look at him now, people just love him.
Yeah, I mean,
right, he's captivating.
Exactly, he's the reason why a lot of us were into magic for a long time. And,
I mean, I saw some of his stuff. I couldn't even watch it when he was on Joe Rogan and what he was doing on,
sticking a needle through his arm and all that.
And all that craziness.
Yeah.
But it's the same when I did acting. I set up the drama club in high school. As a way to meet girls. And I'd injured my knee, and I just thought, you know what, I like this. Let me do this. But if you think about it, if you go on and you end up being an actor and you're on the big screen. You're not nerdy anymore. You know what I mean? Because when people say thespian, they think, I mean something different. And then talk to me about your journey, because one of the things I'm really curious about, as a salesman, I've been in sales for 30 years. I find most people in business development sales, they almost can't acknowledge sales as a word. It's a dirty word because of the connotations. How's your journey to become a salesman and a business developer? You're not just an advisor, because the reality is you're paid for advising the clients.
Correct.
But without the clients, without getting the clients, you don't have a portfolio.
Exactly. So, okay, this will be, I don't know if I always if people ask me, how do you get into private banking? This is obviously, I'm not a senior private banker, but this is my own view. I think the first thing is, I would say, you don't have to study finance. You need to know finance, obviously, but that's not everything. You need to be a student of the world. You need to be able to have 30 minutes of material on anything. Like one moment, I'm talking about lithium batteries and to a Chinese businessman. The next moment, I'm talking about the food agri-business in Indonesia. Next moment, I'm talking about MMA, some or whatever, paddle. You need to be able to have 30 minutes of material on anything. And that is the most important thing for a private banker, because you can bring in, and obviously you need to have your financial know-how. But where you are is you're like almost like a football manager or conductor of an orchestra. You bring in the right people. So you need to have that good framework of people around you. And with the clients, you need to build that trust, right? That's something that money cannot buy. And that's what you're providing as a relationship manager or private banker. And in terms of sales and finding clients, when I started off, I was like, damn, how am I going to find like ultra high net worth people? This is crazy. Like, what, do I just walk around or what do I do? And then everyone is saying, do I pick up golf? So I was like, no, it's too obvious. What is something that people won't think about? So what I did was I actually called all my current clients PAs. I say, hey, you're a personal assistant. Do you have other friends that work as a personal assistant? They say, yeah, I do. And a personal assistant will usually work for someone who runs something, right? And I started talking to them. I'll be walking downstairs my office. I'll see a driver for a client. I'll just start talking to the driver. Hey, who else do you work for and all that? And that's how I started to grow my client base. And obviously the the one that is the biggest source of clients is your current clients. I think a lot of bankers
Referrals.
forget that. Yeah. And no client is small, no client is big. Someone always knows someone. So I always believe in just doing your best for every client. It doesn't matter if they're your biggest client or your smallest client, because that could be a referral to something else.
You know, I want to touch upon that because one of the things, so at the moment, when part of my career coaching is to help a lot of people further their careers.
Yeah.
And let's just say you're a lawyer in practice and you become a partner. You're now responsible for generating revenue.
Yeah.
So most people think about networking and going to an event. And whilst that's all good, I don't think that's... so in my mind, there are two ways. So 46% of our deals every year come from referrals.
Exactly.
So I always tell my guys and the people that I coach, I always say, look, if you sat down for the next 3 months and for half an hour thought every day how to perfect getting referrals, asking when, how to ask, but also referrals largely comes from your credibility. So if you're doing a great job, but it eliminates a lot of risk. So if you introduce me to someone and I trust you and you vouch for them, by definition, this person is already much further up the list.
Exactly.
You know?
So I always have this, actually this leads back to magic when we come up with methods for a trick, right?
Yeah.
So methods for sales or finding clients in particular, now that we're talking, if you can think, if it's the first thing that pops into your head, it's the first thing that pops into everyone's head.
Yes.
Right? So that is definitely not the answer. But it doesn't mean that the method needs to be complex. In fact, the most beautiful methods and the most crazy magic tricks have the simplest methods.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with finding clients. So for me, it was using the current client pool or going to all these PAs. People won't always ignore the service staff and all that. And for me, that was where I realized I think that's where I go, because a lot of people in finance will see how they dress, how I never ever judge a book by its cover. I will, because you really never know. And that's something that I
love it. There's a great lesson to be learned there. Talk to us about, so when you set up your YouTube channel back in the day, and it was very successful.
It was pretty good.
It was really good. So my favorite episode is the one in the car. So talk us a little bit through that, because that was, I watched it again recently, 2 days ago, and I just thought that still holds up today. You know?
Okay, so because I said I had wanted to be a professional magician, right? So I had to think, what is the fastest way to make an impact, right? So firstly, it had to be online, right? Before you get, I love magic. It's a real world art. I don't like it over on screen actually, but I had to go on screen just for the reach, right, on YouTube, and it had to be over the top. So if you think about it, what I did, I just basically, for people who didn't watch it, I blindfolded myself, got a local YouTube, local star celebrities in Singapore.
Did you know them, or did you?
I knew them from church as a kid, and asked them if they would join me, and they were very kind enough to help me out. So you use their clout, and then if you think about the trick, basically I drove a car blindfolded, and behind one of the cars was a girl who was the bandmate of the guy in the car with me. And if you think about it, the trick is basically the spike under the cup. But I just blew it up into an Aston Martin with huge metal blindfolds and speeding down the road.
And you by the way, if that was my Aston Martin, I would have let you dream of that, because you were putting your foot down.
I was putting my foot down.
Even if you weren't blindfolded, you were putting your foot down.
Exactly. I was gunning it, and I have very, very good friends who trust my abilities, and not just magic, but apparently driving abilities. Yes, that was very kind. It was a friend's car, and it actually really helped, because it kind of added a shine to the...
man. I mean, that was part of the magnetism of it.
Correct. Because it had to have that element of danger. But obviously there's no real danger there. It's all showmanship, but it's just to create that drama on screen.
And then how did you feel? Because one of the things that I've been trying to encourage my kids is to step into the light. So up until we set up this podcast, I was hidden on LinkedIn. And for a lot of people, they get nervous about doing that, building their own visibility in their career. But how did you find that? Very natural, or?
It was pretty natural for me, but I'm not a public person, especially on social media. I'm actually quite horrendous at social media, so maybe that's why could have been bigger, but I'm quite bad at that. But when it comes to sitting down and talking and performing, I've never shied away. In fact, sometimes I have to get myself nervous just to be able to perform because I'm too comfortable. I don't know why. I'm very okay just sitting there and just talking. Yeah.
But surely, like when you had that event that I went to, right? That was a big event. When I went in there, I thought, wow, and it had that kind of black tie feeling. There was a bit of mystique to it. It was in a club. Yeah. But surely, just even selling out and doing the performance and it going well, that must have been nerve-wracking.
The only thing I get nervous is if the tickets sell. Because everything that's not in my control is something that I'll probably get nervous. But when it comes to performance and speaking, I think I have it under control, and that's why it doesn't give me the anxiety.
Well, again, give an overview of that, because when you did that, it's the whole audience. Yeah, it's not just one or two people. Yeah, you got everyone there. Yeah, you know, on bated breath. Yeah, walk us through that, because that was amazing.
So that show you watched, the Dirty Room Project, was actually quite interesting. My partner at that time, Jean Christophe, who's a great mentalist from
your
Australia.
Business partner.
Yes, at that point of time, we decided to write a show from back to front. So that was how we had no methods to the show, but we wanted a certain ending, and we wrote it from back to front. Because if you remember, the show title was an anagram for a prediction in the show.
That's right.
Yeah, and we had all these like lead ups to that huge conclusion. So that was how we actually structured the show. It was it was something very new to me, and we had great consultants who are great magicians who are based in Singapore. They helped us a lot, and
it's amazing. So I want to walk through the journey of your parents, right? Because I'm thinking about my kids and what they're going to do. Yeah. And like, for example, my son wants to become a movie director. Yeah. So it's unconventional. Yeah. So they just said, look, do whatever you want, but you've got 2 years. But what happened? Your goal was, well, I want to make it successful enough that it's not 2 years, it's 20 years. Is that what your thought process was?
No, it wasn't at all. It's strange. I knew it was going to be 2 years, good or bad. I just wanted to do it. I also understand the realities of living in Singapore.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's not easy, and maybe I didn't dream big enough, but I feel like I have satiated that need to kind of chase my dreams, but at the same time I want to be practical. I think that's the Asianness in me and in Singapore. Yeah. And for me, I think transitioning into showbiz actually helped me transition into my work quite easy. And as I said just now, I've never resigned, and the reason is because I never believe you should enjoy your work. Which it's something that people won't get it. Like, that's why I don't understand when people say that you should enjoy your work. You're getting paid to do something, right?
Talk to me about that mind frame. I'm curious.
So in show business, if you meet my fee, I will perform. If you're in Brunei and you pay 250,000 to Beyonce to sing 3 songs, she will show up in Brunei. And that is the showbiz mentality that I brought into private banking, because I realized, firstly, I understand earning your stripes in creative endeavors. There's no right given. You have to kind of work your way up. So I never rushed it. And at the same time, I never ever had that notion, or I never ever believe I should enjoy my work. It's a bonus if I do. There's only a few handfuls of people in the world that actually enjoy their job, and that's a privilege. Yeah. So that was my mentality.
And even if you do, the reality is, even if you're Tom Cruise, you're having to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and do a shoot in the cold, or you're away from your family for 6 months. Nothing is always perfect.
Nothing is perfect. And in fact, as I said just now, when magic became an occupation, it kind of took away
that's an important thing to touch upon.
It kind of took away that fun and creativity, because you are trying to earn money to put food on your own table, right? So that is something that I think a lot of creatives also forget, that one of the biggest things to stay creative is to be financially independent. It gives you the ability to take risks and do things that you want.
Yes.
And ultimately that authenticity will actually make your art good. But some people say it feels like selling out, but I am a very firm believer in being financially stable, and everything else, your hobbies, your whatever you want to pursue, it will kind of flourish to the best of your abilities. Yeah, you may not be the best, but it will be the best of your abilities.
I love that. I'm curious. So when you went from being an assistant to a banker, did someone tap you on the shoulder, or did you ask for that promotion and that step up?
I was a banker for an assistant banker for 5 years, right? And actually that was a very, very good training ground. I think the best training ground to being a private banker, because what that did for me is it exposed me to many different, I was supporting many bankers, and it exposed me to different ways of running your business as a private banker. There are bankers who are very trade oriented. They're always trading. They are deal oriented bankers they're always chasing that one bank collaboration with an investment bank. Then there are those bankers who are just really good with hunting clients. They're socialite. So I was exposed to all these characters and pantheon of like different bankers, and the bank I was at, I was lucky enough to work with the who's who.
Yeah, some elite guys,
correct,
and girls,
and that kind of elevates your standard. And I just took from that what I think I could do the best, and I said, maybe let me give it a shot. And my boss at that point of time said, actually, we'll support you, and they put me into this junior banker. It's a 2-year course, and then after that,
it's a formalized program, is it?
It's a formalized program.
I think so important.
Yeah,
because otherwise it's like if you look at, do you remember Alex Ferguson?
Yeah.
Why his team was all homegrown, because you brought your players up.
Exactly.
And I think that's become, it's missing now in most companies, most banks.
It is. And yeah, I think, and that's why I've never resigned. As I said, the bank I was at is a bank that actually grew a lot of homegrown talent, and they invested in that. And I enjoyed the culture of the bank. It was a bank that,
it's known for its entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, it's a very entrepreneurial bank, and I took to that and and I just took and ran with that. And
did the bank have any formalized programs on training and business development and working with clients?
Yes, so it's they call it a JRM, Junior Banking Program. You go through, it's about a year course of there's a lot of lessons, and it ends with a role-playing session where they actually bring in actors who play the role of clients. And
are they actually actors?
They're actually actors, and they're trained financially also. So you're in that room doing it with a client, and other senior bankers are in another room watching you, and they'll grade you. And funnily, that role play I had, my role play was so good, they used that to teach the other cohorts. Wow. This is how you should do it.
Really?
Yeah. So that
amazing.
Was
Did you watch it back?
I didn't watch it back. Yeah, they didn't give us the thing, but they told me that I did really well, and they're actually using that to kind of bring.
So if you end up managing a team of bankers, hopefully you can then infuse that.
Yeah, I think banking is very interesting. I think it's to me, like, it's not private banking especially is one of the few jobs where if you were ever a team leader or a manager, I'm not that, obviously I'm a banker, but it's one of the few jobs where the people you manage are earning more money than you. It's a bit like football managers.
Exactly.
Because these are the stars, right? So it's managing private bankers, it's a very complex thing, because you have your Cristiano Ronaldos, your Messis, and then you have your journeyman, you have your all rolled up into one.
Great
and
analogy.
Throw in egos and lots of money, right? So it really is like a bit like football managing. So I think, it's a very
I remember
interesting
Ferguson always saying, listen, I'm managing a bunch of teenage multimillionaires. And that's why you ruled with an iron fist. And it fascinates me. And so I was talking to one of my best friends, and he was from the world of recruitment. He said, look, you can't teach your guys the Paul Quinn way. And I don't. I tried to teach them the fundamentals. But I'll use private banking as an example. You can deal with clients from any walk of life, a rubber plantation owner, a hedge fund manager, whatever it is. But so you need to have the fundamentals.
Let's just say the fundamentals, that one you need to have, and you need to be really good at it.
Absolutely solid.
That is out of the way. That is not a question, right? You need to know your stuff. You need to be hardworking. That is the baseline.
But after that, it's the essence of how I would communicate with a client base versus you. There'll be a lot of similarities, but the reality is you're going to have your passions, I'm going to have mine, and you find a way to connect those.
Correct.
But one of the key things I've realized in working with very senior people at a young age, I think when I first met your dad, I was probably 27, 28. And how do you get into the room with the CEO, right? And first, I never really thought of it like that. And I find it's quite powerful just to invite someone for a coffee, for a drink. How do you deal with difficult people, especially when you were younger, as you're coming up? Because my guys, the guys that work for my research team, they sometimes struggle with that.
Okay, let me tell you a story. Okay, this is the first. So the day you graduate, they say, okay, now you're a banker. Okay, so obviously you don't have clients. They may have some clients where you can inherit, and some clients who are, they call it orphaned. Maybe the banker resigned and they are currently without a banker. So they'll put you up in a lineup to go and speak to the client. So literally, they call it a beauty pageant.
Beauty parade, right?
Yeah, beauty parade. So you walk in. The first banker in, comes out, second banker. So this was my first time. I was like, what do I do, right? Oh my goodness. And the ones before me are MDs. So let me tell you what I did. I went in. They said, okay, so what's your name? I'm Chris. Why should you be my banker? I said, I shouldn't be a banker. I am not experienced. I am not better than the previous bankers that just walked in. Then the client looked at me and was like, do you know you're trying to be my... I said, yeah, I shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be a banker. I'm definitely not better than any one of them. Then like, okay, then why are you here? Then I said, but I can guarantee you one thing. You will be my biggest client, and I know I'll work hard, and I'll work 100%, 110% for you. That's the only thing I can tell you, because I can't tell you I'm better than the other bankers.
Yeah.
I shut the door. Next thing I know, 2 hours later, the client said, okay, I'll go with Chris.
Love it.
Yeah, so
Love it.
So I feel like being authentic and never... I think the natural thing to have done at that point in time for many junior bankers who have been, you go in and I'm good because I went to this school, I'm good because
Yeah.
I sat there, I really sat there. I still remember I sat there and I was like, oh, what do I do? So I said, I have to come off on the offbeat.
Yeah.
I always feel like starting off with a magic trick, almost like you start off on the offbeat, you throw the person off, and so they're not there, they can't get you already. You know what I mean?
They can't get you already.
They can't get you already. They're totally like, what do you mean you shouldn't be you're not good at your work? Yeah, so immediately you get them in this weird state. It's almost like hypnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because so one of the things that I try and share with people is typically in sales, or you could be asking a woman out for dinner, you face an objection.
Yep.
And most people have worked on the rebuttal.
Yeah.
But at that point, the person's already said no.
Yeah.
And you're having to try to turn them around.
Yeah.
So if you anticipate what those objections are, so you know potentially they're going to say, you know, this guy's an MD.
Yeah.
How are you better than him?
Yep.
And so you've taken that away from them.
Correct. I object myself first. But the thing is steeped in real honesty. So that's something that you kind of need to ask yourself. Like you need to be comfortable with saying that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know. These are two things that I live by. I'm not good enough, and I don't know. It's very, very counterintuitive because people are like, you need to believe in yourself. But these are two things that I start with. Then it comes from a place of authenticity, and then you kind of build into it.
I was asked by the head of HR to meet a bank some years ago, and I said, look, we're at full capacity. You know, I don't think we should take on any more work. And you know, ironically, when you say that, they want to work with you more.
Yeah.
And he insisted, and I said, okay, I'll come and meet.
Yeah.
And there were 8 people there, like a who's who of the bank, right, CEO down. And they had left out, I think, 7 or 8 name cards of the previous search firms that they had met with.
Yeah.
So I said, excuse me, who's done this?
Yeah.
And they're like, and I just said, it's quite disrespectful to me and all of those people.
Yeah.
You know, how would you feel about it? But they did it on purpose.
Yeah.
And so it annoyed me. I just thought that and I said, look, you know, if you invited a woman over for dinner tonight,
you wouldn't leave.
Right. So whoever it was very obvious who it was, and that person was embarrassed.
Yeah.
Then the other interesting thing was I noticed none of them had name cards, notepads.
Yeah.
I said, look, do me a favor. If you think I'm going to add value, you need a notepad. You need to take down notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I call it Yes Platform, because when you get someone on the same path and they're agreeing with you, they're doing what you're doing, they're nodding, and it makes the flow of conversation a lot better.
Yes.
But what I realized was with those guys, they had a very negative impression of headhunters. And I'm sure you get that with private bankers, you know, the perception, or of lawyers. And you've got to get past that and that initial inertia.
Yeah, you do.
Right?
I mean, as you said, as a private banker, you walk into a room, you sit down, the clients or prospects immediately go, what do you want to sell? What do you want to... the guard is immediately up, right? So I never ever meet prospects in formal workwear. These are things that I just want to be a friend first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is very different from what people would think private banking is, right? But just go in and build a connection, and I never go in with any intentions. I just go and have a chat like what we're doing right now, just having a conversation. If it leads to something, then great. If it doesn't, it's fine, because they will just know you will know them, and maybe down the road, you never know, 10 years later something will happen. But never go in with any intentions, because it removes it. I think we keep going back to this word, authenticity.
Yeah.
And once that is gone, right, it's hard to gain it again. So I always start with that and take it from there.
It works for you.
And it kind of works for me, but obviously there's a lot of people think you are wasting a lot of time, but it's just the long game.
So I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
You will appreciate this.
Yeah.
So I had a bet with two of my guys, the research team, about amount of activity we could do that day. And if I lost, I'd have to buy them lunch, or the other way around.
Okay.
And anyway, so we went to Nobu. I took them to Nobu.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I had so many things that I wanted to achieve during that lunch that they had no idea of.
Yeah.
So firstly, there were 2, if not 3 tables of private bankers trying to develop relationships with clients.
Okay, just see it around.
Yeah, and I said, look, you're used to private bankers bullying you and being rude to you.
Yeah.
But now what you'll see is they're playing lip service to the client.
Exactly.
Right? So there's an 80-year-old man, he's probably worth a couple of $100 million, right?
Yeah.
And it changes everything. And then I said, this guy served us.
Yeah.
And I said, let's find out his name. And I said to him, you smoke, don't you? And he's a bit embarrassed. And I said, that's okay. I'm an ex-smoker, so it takes one to know one.
Yeah.
But I said to my guys, does this guy smoke? They couldn't tell. One person said yes, but for no reason, just a guess. The other person said no. He's a smoker, so he couldn't smell it.
Yeah.
And I could see it on his fingers. Then there was another waitress. This will crack you up.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to ask that girl for some Redoxin or some vitamin C, and she's going to bring it to me. And they were saying, well, how do you know she has even got it?
Yeah.
And I said, I assure you, she's going to have it, and she's going to bring it to me. Sure enough, she did.
Okay.
Right. And, so this whole lunch, I'm hoping they got some takeaways from it.
Yeah.
But it's just one's ability to read small things.
Yes.
See things.
Yes.
Observe things.
That's a lot. Actually, you said that's how a lot of mind reading is done. I think people always miss out the small details, like the hand you wear your watch on, the way you put on your belt gives me whether you're left or right-handed.
Yeah.
I mean, or at least puts me in the right percentage when I'm betting if he's a right or left-handed. There are a lot of things that are there, but it's very obvious.
You must see things though, like when you're like in the Matrix, you're seeing everything in slow motion, right?
Yes and no. I kind of like to, because I also love poker. So these are almost like tells, right? So tells are not 100% sure bet, but it's interesting, and I don't have any science to back it up, but there are certain things or certain remarks that someone would say that I see that in my alarm bells are ringing immediately, or if certain ways they dress, I'll know what they're into.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, you call it intuition or whatever, but that is the whole Sherlock Holmes of
all right, so listen, we've not planned for this, but if you could play poker with any few players, 2 magicians, 1 poker player, 1 MMA fighter,
okay,
who are you going to go with?
And we'll start with the MMA fighter. I'll definitely play with my favorite fighter of all time, just to sit there, and that would be George St. Pierre.
Oh man,
the best GSP.
Yeah.
When it comes, and what do you say? 2 magicians.
Yeah.
Will be Penn and Teller.
Okay.
Both of them. My favorite magicians.
Really?
Yeah, of all time.
Their whole act and their setup, apart from the magic, they just characters.
Exactly. And I love how they don't take magic seriously.
Yeah.
They love the art, but they don't take it seriously. They can laugh at themselves, and their magic is...
Have you ever met them?
Yes, I have. Actually, one of their consultant, Johnny Thompson, was a mentor of mine from magic.
Really?
Yeah. He actually was the consultant for my uncle's magic show, and that's how I got to know him.
Wow.
Yeah, so Johnny Thompson, he's passed away a couple of years ago, but one of the best ever.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, so there'll be Penn and Teller filling up those 2 seats. Poker player, it would be Daniel Negreanu.
Okay.
One of my favorite, because he just yaps and yaps. I'm always there for fun, so Daniel Negreanu. So
we enjoy it.
The poker.
I love it, mate. Well, talk to us a little bit about, so when you go and set up this new business, what have you got in mind for it? Who are you going to be coaching and working with?
So the business is going to be called Speak Easy.
Okay.
Right.
I like that.
Because we want people to speak easy. And we'll cover 2 fronts. It will be conversations and public speaking. So that's pretty much it. And we'll give people the tools to be able to construct public speaking or conversations, just like that. I think you have actually, I think even for yourself, you have seen yourself improve your conversations from podcast episode 1
Yeah.
today, right?
100%.
And it's all about practice. Yeah. So
Practice. What advice would you give to people that, you know, are in a corporate job that love doing things a little bit unusual, right? Because a lot of people, I almost feel, live in fear. They hide things. You know, so how would you advise people? You know, listen, you can chase your dreams, be authentic.
Yeah. Firstly, be good at your job first.
Yeah.
That's the most important.
You have to be.
Yeah, once you're good at your job or you're confident in your job, then just do it, because what's wrong? I mean, obviously don't have a hobby that's taking drugs or something illegal, but I mean, have a hobby, just do it, because and remember to make sure you're good at your job first. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I went to watch, I can't remember which one. I think it was, it was Khabib and Conor.
Okay.
And
This was in Vegas, the one where they fought, they jumped out of the cage. Okay.
So I brought my son, who was 11 at the time.
Yeah.
That's how he fell in love with MMA. And he just had done his PSLE. And I told a friend of mine, a client of mine who's a CEO of a bank. And he goes, well, you're going for 3 nights?
Yeah.
I said, yeah. He goes, I wish I had your life.
Yeah.
And what I realized is because there will always be people who think, well, you know, you focusing on your job.
Yeah.
But I literally was gone for 3 nights.
Yeah.
And it was, but the truth is that I think a lot of people truly, that they have an appreciation, they admire it. Because they know if you're doing your job and you deliver, that's a big thing. Yeah. And I've always felt, and the thing I explain to people is, if I didn't do that, if I didn't pursue those passions, or go on holiday once or twice a year, I wouldn't be able to deliver work.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
They're inextricably linked.
Yep. And that goes back to you being who you are, right? And like I'm psychotic like you. Like I will fly if I know Darren Brown is performing in London. I will I will go and watch it. But as I said, that is that authenticity you bring, because if MMA ever comes up and we're both seated in the same room, you and someone else, no one can recreate your passion and knowledge for it, right?
Yeah.
And this is all part of forming who you are as a person.
It's big, right? It's so important.
Yeah.
Who has inspired you both in magic and in the finance world?
So in magic, it will be obviously Penn and Teller, that I said it just now. And for mentalism, would be Darren Brown. I think I like to say I would like my magic to be an amalgamation of these 3 characters, where it's, you don't take yourself seriously, you're a bit skeptical about everything, and you just make fun of yourself. And it's just all tricks, right? I'm not taking myself like I'm this
Too seriously.
Yeah, not too seriously. So that's on the magic front. And when it comes to banking, it'll go back to the start of the conversation. It'll be my dad. I think he has been great counsel. And over the years, I've realized that experience is everything. Like, it's really, really invaluable. You don't need to be the smartest. And that just doesn't apply just for banking, but anything.
Yeah.
Experience is a lot. Yeah.
By the way, one other thing about your dad was he's always been incredibly kind.
Yeah.
Because when I met him, I was very young, you know, and that's rare.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like I had to prove myself to him. So that's very special. What does success look like for you now in business and in your career? Because you operate and work with so many successful business people.
I think on my personal front, I think what I would just want to be a banker that will be in it for the long haul. You know, it's a very cruel game, finance, and I just want to be there. It is for longevity, and I want to make sure that my clients trust me until the day I call it a day, right? I mean, I hope they trust me and with everything, because we're not just covering them in finances. We see them through marriages, divorces, kids, I mean, deaths, everything we see it through.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I would, on a professional front, would like.
By the way, I think one of your USPs, if you're talking to a client, is that I've never resigned. I'm long term. I'm all in.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
Quick rapid fire, 2 questions.
Yeah.
What excites you most about your job? I know you said that it's business, but What excites you the most?
Meeting all kinds of people. They could be conmen or they could be the next multi-billionaire. yeah.
There's a fine line between the two.
It's a fine line, and you meet all kinds of people in this job. It's exciting, and that's where I get to kind of test my judgment skills of a person. Yeah.
I'm curious because I'm an entrepreneur, and I just think there are just different levels.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I was a martial artist and a fighter, I didn't really have a great deal of fear. I was always a little bit nervous about the opponent. But in business, I've worked so hard and I come from a humble background. I'm nervous to bet everything now.
Yeah.
And what I found is there's this Donald Trump saying, which is, if I owe the bank $1 million, you're in trouble. But if you owe them 100 million, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And when I look at the ultra high, they double down big time.
Yes. I think it's entrepreneurship is a drug. Like, that's something I see, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, when they get their huge Series E levels, you think that I would pack up and call it a day and just be on the beach somewhere, right? They will go on to the next thing. And that's what I see about entrepreneurs. They're all serial entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I've not met a successful entrepreneur that say, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, they keep going.
Yeah, they keep going, and they'll next. And
I've analysed that. It's part of their fabric. It's because again, I was having a discussion with my friend about money, and he always felt historically that I set high numbers. And I said, well, it's not like I'm going to go and, buy all these things, but it's if you're at a certain level, as an ex-sprinter, if I can run this time, that's my benchmark. Yeah. I'm not comparing myself to anyone else. And I think in business, it's the same thing. If you have high expectations of yourself, that's what you're benchmarking against. If you could go back in time and change any approach that you had towards becoming a private banker and being a private banker, what would it be, if any?
I think I would have. I don't live with a lot of regrets, but I think I would dial it back in, because I used to be very aggressive with getting business done. I think now.
How so? What do you mean?
I will really push it through, where if it's handling compliance matters or talking to credit, these are things that I'm very aggressive.
You bulldog it through.
Yeah, bulldog it through. But I think now, almost like Floyd, right? You need to kind of pick and choose your spots. Yeah. So I think that's something that I'll change, but I don't regret it. I think it comes again with experience. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to learn from it. Yeah. Yeah. So
on that note, again, one of the things I've realized, and I was talking to my sales team yesterday, I said, look, in order to really know what the edge of the limits are, you have to redline conversations early on in your career, because that's how you learn. If you play in the safe zone all the time, your room and margin to get better is minimal.
Yeah, and I think the bank that I'm from, that was where I learned it from. It's a very entrepreneurial place. It's all about business, and it's learning how to push it through in a compliant manner. But there's still a lot of roadblocks, just like any company, because there's bureaucracy, there's politics and all that. Yeah.
I've got to use a Yoel Romero MMA quote.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go.
Just go.
Just go.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love it. What piece of advice would you have for junior bankers coming up into the system?
Yeah, I don't think I'm senior enough to give advice, but I think it will be, again, to be authentic and be who you are, because people can smell
the BS.
Yeah, the BS from a mile away, and no matter how dumb you think a client is, no, they're not.
No way.
No, they're really not. Yeah, no matter how their source of where their source of wealth from, people are not stupid. So that's something I would just be authentic, and remember that money is not the goal. That's the most important. Money is a byproduct of your good work. So I think that is something that salespeople always forget. Yeah.
What's one trait that every private banker must have?
They need to be honest, and they need to be someone that your clients can trust everything with.
Yeah. Because you see everything, the whole life cycle.
Correct.
If you weren't a banker, what would you be doing today?
I'll be doing maybe what you're doing, like a career, coming up with some kind of career coaching stuff. Yeah, public speaking. That's my passion. Or maybe doing magic. Yeah, something like that.
You know what I love about life is like, I don't even know when you and I ever talked about work. In fact, what were you doing when I first met you? Well, you weren't even in banking yet, were you?
I was in banking. Just started. I was still a contractor and doing magic on the side.
Yeah. But that's what I love about life, because I realize that, when you talk to people, and it doesn't have to be all about work. That's one thing I always say, by the way. So one of my training methodologies is with my guys, when we're doing role play, ask a work related question and then a personal related question. And then when we're playing this game is make sure that your questions are scattered. Because when you meet someone, let's say if I'm interviewing candidates, let's say there are 10 people, technically very, very similar. What separates them is their individuality. You know, are they going to be able to walk the floor, engage people, speak to clients well? And that's all to do with personality.
Yes, it is everything.
Big time, right? I thought you were going to say you'd be a magician. Okay. What book changed your perspective on finance? Is there anything that you've read, watched, listened to?
Yes. When I became a banker, my dad gave me this book, Winning Relationships by Andrew Cook. I can't remember.
Winning Relationships.
Yep.
Okay.
That was,
I've not read that.
Yeah, he said that is the book that he gives every banker that joins him. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so he gave that to me, and it's a very simple book. It's nothing confusing. It's a very simple book on just how to be a good private banker.
I want to read that for sure.
Yeah.
Did your dad give you any other nuggets of wisdom? I mean, now that you're a banker, has he given you 2 or 3 things that he feels that you should keep in your back pocket?
All the time. He always stresses the long game. He said this is not an overnight thing. Don't chase the short-term gains. It's a long game. And you're doing more, and you're more than a finance person for the client. And I think bankers my age is very interesting. I was talking to him that day that we are actually pioneers of a certain sense because we are the ones who are actually seeing the transfer of wealth. My parents' time, they were setting up the trust structures, they were setting up that preservation, but now we're actually following through with the transfer of wealth, which even the most senior bankers have never done it because they dealt with the first generation, not the second generation.
It's evolving.
Exactly.
No, that's brilliant. What's a personal finance rule or hack that you live by?
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good book, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
Okay. What are common misconceptions that people have about private bankers and about magic?
When it comes to private bankers, is all of them play golf, they're into wine, and they like expensive watches. I don't have expensive watches. I don't like wine, and I don't play golf. So I could be the worst private banker ever.
What are your 3 vices then, or things that you enjoy?
I love stand-up comedy. I love...
Who are your top 3 favorite comedians?
Louis C.K.
Okay.
That is the number 1 for me.
Okay.
I love Dave Chappelle.
I knew you were going to say Chappelle.
Yeah. And I think Richard Carlin. I think these are the top 3. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? So this is a question.
George Carlin, sorry, Richard Carlin.
Yeah, no, George.
Yeah.
He's brilliant.
Yeah.
I placed the head of private equity in a private bank some time back, and on the surface of it, he's very straight-laced. And I asked him, I said, do you like comedy? He goes, yeah, why? How do you know? I said, just some of the things that you said. I said, who's your favorite? And he said, Chappelle all day.
Yeah.
And then it completely would change your opinion of who this guy is.
Yeah, because you know that they can laugh at themselves,
right?
Yeah.
And then you can chat a lot more crap on the, and he enjoyed the banter.
For a magician, the worst thing would be that you use magic to pick up girls. That's the common mistake. I've never done that. So
you never. You didn't need it.
I never done that. Yeah, because I've kind of liked the art too much to kind of cheapen it.
Really? Yeah. You're better. No, if I had your skills back in the day, I would have used them for sure. What's your go-to productivity hack? Balancing everything.
Working out, I think, and having enough sleep. That's something that I'm not jacked or anything, but I think just kind of stepping out of the office and getting enough
What do you
sleep,
do? Do you do some cardio, some weight training?
I do a lot of yoga and I do a lot of long runs. That's
long
my
runs?
thing. Yeah, really long runs.
What's long run?
Like 10 to 15K.
Really?
Yeah, just to kind of...
what? Once a week or?
If I'm not working out, I tend to do those long runs. It's like a recovery run, but it kind of it tortures me and kind of puts me back, centers me, and then I get a good sweat. And
do you listen to anything, or you're not?
I'm always listening to something. I'm never not listening to something. Maybe that's a productivity hack. I'm always listening to a podcast or audiobook. Yeah.
I'll add to that.
Yeah.
I say to people like my wife, I'll just say, you don't realize you're dependent upon listening or music, right? And so there'll be times. So yesterday I went for an hour and 10-minute walk. I hurt my foot the other day, so I can't run. But my gift to myself was I wouldn't listen to anything, but I failed because I sent about 50 messages on my WhatsApp.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so actually, I didn't get, I got the physical, but I didn't get the mental break.
Yeah. So I usually switch it to airplane mode and
Okay.
I'll download the episode on, say, Spotify, and I'll just
I like
listen
that.
to it. Yes. And during that 1 hour, 1.5 hours, I try to disconnect.
So what are the top podcasts that you listen to at the moment?
I love Pendulet's podcast.
Okay.
That's a big one. And of course, we have Diary of a CEO was a recent one that I started listening. Thought was pretty good.
Chris, why the hell haven't you said Quintessential Questions?
And of course, last but not least, I was getting there to save the best for last. Yeah, and I think and the last one, obviously, I mean, you try to escape it, but you can't. It'll be Joe Rogan, #1 podcast. It's just the people you bring on that it's.
Well, you and I being fans of his because going way back because of MMA and comedy, right? And you know, the podcast has blown up beyond that.
Yeah.
But I tend to, quite frankly, I tend to just listen to very selective ones.
Yeah. I
know what I
like
mean?
to see who he has on. And if sometimes when I just really don't want to think it, I would listen to the entire Protect Our Parks episode where he get comedians on and just drinking. I kind of feel like it's a hang in my head. I'm hanging out with the boys.
Yeah.
And I just switch off. So that's another thing. You don't have to be productive all the time. Yeah.
So I'll tell you an interesting one.
Yeah.
So I went to the inaugural Abu Dhabi UFC event.
Okay.
And it was outdoors. And I
Was this the Anderson Silva one?
yeah.
The one
that
where he was
debacle.
running around. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was so disappointing as a fight.
Yeah.
Great memory, by the way.
Yeah.
And I went to the hotel, and what was really weird was all the fighters are having breakfast together. So he was fighting Damian Maia.
Yeah.
And so Damian Maia's table was there. He was there, and Anderson Silva was on his PSP.
Yeah.
You know, with his headphones in. And so I met him. I met GSP. He wasn't fighting, but he was there. And I met Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan was he's just so nice and obliging.
Yeah.
So engaging. And you know, this was before his podcast. So it's what makes me laugh. It annoys me, but even people that know me really well.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this person?
Yeah.
You should listen to this. And I was thinking, mate, I watch more of his comedy shows in live, in person, than you've listened to a podcast. Do you know what I mean? But it's just how it's blown, and it's crazy, right? Well, Chris, look, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It has been, Paul. It flew by, man. I was worried we didn't have anything to go, but it was a fantastic
We should have
conversation.
easily done another hour.
Yeah.
But I'd love to have you back on when you've set up the business.
We will.
And with your partner.
Definitely.
All right, man.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thanks
Chris.
for having me.
Cheers.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
That was